As you can see, we are not in the studio.
No, we're on the road. I'm so
On
excited.
the road.
Again.
On the road. On the road again. Well, we're shooting this podcast from the Garcia Epic Road Trip.
Number 2.
No. Yeah.
Epic Road Trip.
Round two. Round two.
Round 2.
Round
That's
2.
it, round 2.
No. Not episode 2, round 2.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, we're on the road again, trying to take advantage of every moment we have. But it's been an awesome trip so far. I'm not really going to get into it. We don't want to get too much into it because we got an episode we want to shoot today.
We got some things to talk about.
So talking about some things.
Actually, some things that I would like to talk about was the fact that this area here that we are in. We're in Alabama right now, and so actually this has been an amazing trip, an amazing experience, and amazing journey. Any word that you want to throw in there, that's really what it's been.
Any word you want to throw in there.
Okay, good words.
Good words. Look at this. Good words. Trying to keep it lively here.
Yes.
Trying to keep it lively. But there is one thing that this trip has taught me.
Okay, what's it taught you?
That's what we're going to get into in this episode.
Okay, well, let's do it.
So, what do you do when things don't go as planned?
Well, there's several ways that you can look at it. You can go into something and say, oh man, this is never going to work. This is not going to be what I wanted. And you could go into it with that kind of an attitude. Or, which I experienced this weekend, we can go into it with a better positive attitude and say, you know what, we can get through this, and things haven't gone the way that we wanted it to go. So let's redirect our plan.
So I take it you were the pouty type in the beginning, and this is teaching you not to be as pouty.
I don't know about pouty.
Oh my gosh,
Pouty.
I'm trying to be. Anyways, so for me, those that know me and know us, I used to be one that was the worst case scenario type of thinker. Like I would have a plan for everything. Like, okay, if this goes bad, we got this. If that goes bad, we got this. And I would always try to come up with things to have a plan for it. But what I've learned, especially on this trip, I've really learned, because in prior trips, everything just went smoothly. We just traveled along the path, hit everything we wanted to hit. This one's like roadblock, 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 roadblock. And we're barely on day 4. We still got another 5 days of traveling before we go back home. Well, 4 days and then a day back to travel back home. So again, where do we go from here? Because the monkey wrench has been thrown in the mix. And so I have learned that you can't plan for the unplanned. I mean, you just really can't. This trip has taught me that, So I've learned just on this trip, really learning, to have on-the-spot solution resolution. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is finding a solution, and having a resolution. Because, a solution is an answer to the problem. A resolution is, do I do this or do I not do this? You're making a firm choice to either do this or not do this or not, And so you have to come up with these things sometimes on the go just because things happen.
Yeah, like I'll go back and look at, well, obviously we're in Alabama right now, but previously we were in New Orleans, and that was something that we wanted to do, and we wanted to get the experience of, different locations in there, but because the weather didn't permit us
to. It didn't cooperate at all.
It rained most of the time that we were in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But that's okay because we were able to do some other things that we hadn't planned on. So we weren't planning on going down and shopping down the one of the streets, and we did have to wait for things to open, and we had to, it was different because we were able to actually, go with the flow and redirect whatever plans that we had before.
Well, even before that, like even the trip, like I had an itinerary, I had a plan.
And I think you did that because of me.
Yeah.
I love to have lists
Yeah,
and things that we're going to do here, 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 here.
Little bit. I like to
No,
have
I'm
stuff
going to
going.
say a lot.
Well,
I'm
you
a
a lot,
planner.
yes. Yes,
I'm
you a
a
lot.
planner. I love to be able to plan and know where we're going and know what the things that we're doing. Now, I know that you had a list of the things that you wanted us to go through, and, well, they just didn't happen that way.
Well, the list was a little bit her, but a lot of me because I like to know where I'm going as well. I don't like, she thinks I like to fly by the seat of my pants. It seems like that, but really there's a plan. It's just in here, not on paper. But anyways, I had a plan. We left the night before so that we could be AM in Arkansas, not behind the schedule. And so we were going through things and we were rushing through, not really rushing. I'm not going to say rushing because we weren't. We were taking our time and, we were there, had breakfast, an amazing time, so we're kind of going through the schedule and we're realizing we're not going to be able to make the last two events that are planned for this day. So since then, we were a day behind. The last event or so, two or so, we were having to put onto the next day and put onto the next day. And we kept saying, I kept saying, well, by the time we hit Louisiana, from Louisiana to Alabama, there ain't really much. We can catch up. And so, we're going and it's funny because we just got really behind. And then we get to Louisiana and we get rained out. Yeah. So even the events that we had planned in Louisiana didn't get done because they were outside events. So you'd be soaked. So we spent most of our time on Market Street, because it's kind of covered and you were able to do some things. It was just throw a monkey wrench in the plan.
But even though that it was the monkey wrench came in, we were able to still wait for things to open because of course we were in Louisiana early, and so we were getting up early and getting out and getting ready to go, and we had to wait for things to open because the Market Street did not open when we wanted it to open. So we had to wait for all of that to happen. So I think that was something that we didn't plan for, and to plan for like staying in one location for longer than what we had expected. So, but that's okay because we still had a lot of good experiences.
Right. Well, and again, I think the other factor that we don't take into effect is, will our timing fit with other people's timing?
Yeah, that's true.
Because again, when we were planning when I planned this event, I had times, I had dates, I had from here to here, it takes this long. Again, I came up more organized than I did, not necessarily from her, but just to know what was going on. So I had all these, I had routes, I had time. Okay, it takes this long, it takes this many hours from here to here, takes this many hours from here to here. We ended up going to a spot where there was just too many people, and to park, we'd have to hike a mile, and when we drove through it, we really didn't see anything interesting. Nothing bad about the place. Mm-hmm. Just for us, there was nothing really interesting worth parking a mile away and walking back up. So we ended up skipping that one. So you have things like that where you just kind of, you end up with a plan, you go to a place, and it's not what you expect.
Right.
And you have to kind of move on. You kind of have to just say, okay, let me just choose to not do this because, it was part of the plan, but it turned out different than what I expected.
Right. I was thinking about that this morning, and there's times where there's things that we want to see and we want to focus on at that time, but they, when it doesn't happen, then, we just have to say, okay, it's okay. Then, and we'd like to say, okay, well, maybe we'll see it next time. We'll have to see it next time. Well, maybe there wouldn't be a next time, just because of, all the different things that can happen, like,
right.
Natural disasters or, fires or whatever. And, you get the picture and you get the point. But in reality, when those kinds of things happen, then we don't get to see the new growth. And so I think that what you and I experienced on this is definitely something that is growing us as people.
Right.
In our trip planning, in our adventures, and anything that we can actually grow through this.
Right.
And not just sit back and just say, oh yeah, well, we did it last time. Okay, we did it last time. Well, no. I mean, we're going to each experience that we have is going to teach us something different, and it's going to help us grow. and our trips to grow. And so, this is going to be much bigger than what we think it is.
Right. Well, and I think most times, like when we go to a place, we almost anticipate visiting it several times because if we've been there and we kind of share it, because a lot of you watch, what we do. And so we share it and it's like, I want to go there. And sometimes we end up taking people back there. So I think in the back of my mind, that's there. Okay, well, I might have to take these people to Eureka Springs, so I want to get the ins and outs, because that's what I really like to do. When I do these trips, I like to do the ins and outs. Okay, so this is where you go, this is what you do. Again, like I've said before, I shoot a whole nother podcast where I give the ins and outs of different things. And so a lot of times I do that. I want to see places because I want to be able to take people there if they need to, or give them the ins and outs so they can go themselves.
Right.
And we didn't get to do that in that individual place. And it's funny because even doing that, staying there, kind of trying to figure out what we're going to do, it set us up because, again, going back to what we were saying about other people's time and our time, we weren't able to even hit up Baton Rouge. There were some things in Baton Rouge I wanted to do, but because of time restraints, they closed before we could even get to them.
Right.
So that was an event we had to skip. We had to just throw out the window because, again, our timing did not fit with their timing.
Right.
And I think that's another part of the plan. We make these plans, but sometimes we don't take other people's time in consideration when we make these plans, because does it fit with their schedule? Does it fit with their life?
Yep.
And sometimes it's almost like dragging people along with us. So sometimes we got to keep that in mind when we make this plan, that it might not work because other people might not fit into that plan.
Well, we have to remember too that there's a whole big world. There's not just you and I that are here. There's like in this instance right here. We're in somebody else's home, and it's somebody else's land, somebody else's things that are going on all around us. And if we forget about that, then we forget that it can't just be all about us.
Well, it was kind of cool when we got here, because even again the timing, because we didn't get here till like late last night, probably 8 or 9 o'clock. He was walking from the cabin we're staying in over and putting the horses away, because we're on a horse ranch basically. And so he was putting the horses away and doing whatever, and I kind of walked up like, okay, I don't even know where I'm going. He goes, yeah, you're back in there. He goes, I was just over there and I turned your light on.
Yeah, that was,
because again, in his time frame, we probably should have been here earlier, but we weren't. So he made the time to come and turn our porch light on just so that we knew where we were going.
Yeah.
Again, it's he probably planned for us to be here around 3. I don't know how other, people have come stayed in this Airbnb, what time they've showed up, but again, it didn't work out like he thought. So he altered his plan, came over, turned the light on for us so that we could have a light to get into where we're going. And again, I think also we need to keep in mind that sometimes our plans make us miss things we really want.
Okay. How do you
think about Louisiana.
Okay.
So we got rained out in Louisiana.
Right.
And those that have watched the podcast and those that personally know us knows that Liberty has to hit up every dealership wherever, Harley Davidson dealership.
I'm a Harley girl.
And so it started years ago. I've never been into collecting the shirts. I usually get a chip and a pin. The pin represents the place that I've been, the dealership that I went to. The chip is just a collector thing. I get chips from other people that have gone to different dealerships because I collect the chips too. But the pin itself for me is a dealership that I've actually gone to and visited myself. So the pin is more representative of me. Shirts are for her. And like, again, wherever we go, I think we went to Texas and we hit up almost every dealership that was in Texas in our area. I think we were in Dallas area and we hit like 4 or 5 of them. That's just where she's at. So she was wanting to get a shirt from at least the 5 states that we're going to be going through. And in my mind, I was like, no, this ain't going to happen, because usually the dealership is closed on Sunday, Monday. Well, we're going to be in Louisiana on Sunday. We're going to be going through Mississippi on Monday. So there's just no way none of this is going to happen. She's going to miss those 2 dealerships.
Yeah.
And getting rained out in Mississippi,
No,
New Orleans, and down, not Mississippi. Anyways, scratch that. So we got in Louisiana, in New Orleans, we happened to be walking up Market Street, and what did we see? The dealership. Okay, and the dealership said open at 10. They were open on Sunday. And so she's like, "Wow, we got to hang around. I got to get my shirt. I got to get my shirt." And then so that happened again. If I would have stuck to the plan, we'd have left. Soon as the rain stuck, we would have not waited that rain out. We would have just, went and had our little breakfast thing and took off, and just hit the road. But we hung out, got that, and then that took us
behind schedule again.
Well,
so we can get through.
Yeah, it wasn't behind schedule. It got us to the point where now I know, because of the time frame, I'm not going to be able to hit Tupelo. And Tupelo is where you wanted to go for Elvis. Well, where I wanted to take her for Elvis, because she's a big Elvis fan. And so I'll take you to the birthplace of Elvis. And so I was like, well, we're not going to be able to hit Tupelo. And I'm thinking she's going to be disappointed. And so we end up going a different route. And in that different route, what did we run across?
Harley.
Where?
In Mississippi.
In Mississippi. Open on a Monday. Now, had we went the other route, we would have missed what we really wanted. That was kind of cool for you.
Yeah, it was. And what was really funny about it is that we actually went through there and they were closing, within an hour of by the time we actually got there?
I think we were there like 20 minutes before they were closing.
Okay.
She kind of gave us a dirty look. I think she was like, really? Really? We're ready to close? Because literally, once we paid for what we went for, the guys started grabbing the bikes and started taking them inside already. So they were ready to go. So
yeah.
I think they were afraid we were going to shop. But no, we're hunters.
I like to shop, but I knew that we needed to
we're
get out of
hunters.
there
We're hunters. She
fun.
goes in for the shirt. I go in for my pin, and we out. But it was cool because also in that alternative route, it took us to a place I wanted to go as well. I wanted to go.
Right.
And I kept forgetting it. And I kept seeing this name of this town on the billboards, and I'm like, why is that so familiar? And then boom, big old billboard sign, Hellfighters motorcycle sales or whatever. I can't remember how they put it, but it's basically their headquarters. And I'm like, dang it, right there. There it is. There it is. We stopping. Because we had another attraction we were going to see here in Alabama, Natural Bridge. And I'm like, we were trying to make that. And I was like, we're going to make that at dusk. Watch.
Yeah, and trying to rush through. I mean, we were already late anyway for, because we were in Mississippi and trying to get over there to the Natural Bridge. By the time that sunset came, we were really scrambling for time,
pushing it.
Yeah, and so anyway, we knew that if we had stopped at the Hellfighters, we would never been able to make it. It would have just been off.
So it was one of those solution resolutions. Yeah. What do? You know what? We're not even going to try and make Natural Bridge. We're going to do this because here it is. And it was two things right there. It was again, my plan would have not given us what we really wanted. And also I had to come up with a solution. I had to really make a decision. Do I want to do this or do I not want to do this? And so that put us coming here to this Airbnb in Alabama.
Super late.
Very late, yes.
We
were driving back roads, wooded areas, windy roads in the middle of the night. Well, not really in the middle of the night, but in darkness.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt a little sketchy only because I was seeing things and it was only because of the lights and the trees and things like that while we were driving through here. But, I was a little nervous actually just driving through here. It was dark but once you get here I was going to mention this before when you had mentioned it, that it was very peaceful when we got here. Yeah, the dogs were barking, obviously, because there was new people around. But it was kind of cool because the mules came over and I was able to pet them. And then the most blessed thing that I had and from this experience is that I know it may sound trivial to some people, but the guy actually got out of his house and came over here and turned on the porch light. And so that's kind of the things that I was
Yeah.
like, wow, I mean, he actually cared enough to make sure that we knew where we were going.
Yeah.
And
Well, and he
you
was
know,
putting the horses away when we pulled up, and he was just kind of there, like, I don't know where I'm going.
yeah, but still, I mean, he was still, he said, "Oh, I just turned the porch light on for you," and I think that was something that I really was blessed by, is that he actually took the time to see and make sure that we were safe. Making sure that we were safe getting up to where we were and we were unfamiliar with. And
Well, and I
so
think
he
that was that's probably why that densely wooded area was so uncomfortable, because it was unknown. We're several states over from Colorado.
Yeah.
And
We're city people. We live in the middle of the city.
well,
so this
not
isn't-
really city people. I mean,
Well,
we are, but we aren't.
suburbs. But
Suburbs,
still,
yeah.
But still, we're not from this area at all, and we don't live in wooded area. And
Well, I
all
grew
of
up
that,
in rural area, not maybe wooded area, but rural area. So I wasn't too nervous, but again, at the same time, it's different. So it was a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And again, it was like, where are we going? And like, it felt like 10 miles was like 50. Just because of the windiness, and it's like, why are we not here yet? And then we pull up, and again, he was just very, very friendly, very welcoming, and again, like I said, we were unpacking, and the donkeys came up, the mules came up, and started loving on us. It was crazy.
And it was funny because they followed us from. So there's a long, sort of like a long driveway when we come in here. So
Right.
they followed the car to where we parked. We parked it, and then we came over to where we were coming in.
To where the cabin is.
And in the, like, right in front of the, not in front of the door, but right next to the door. I
Yeah.
mean, they just sat there and they were just kind of waiting.
Waiting
and
around.
Waiting, and then I went over and I was able to pet them, and they kind of just sat there, and just not like they were afraid. Nothing about it was scary. I love horses, so I mean, I was ready to go hi. May not have been the smartest thing to do, but I was assuming that it was okay because,
So-
that's who I am. But anyway,
By the time we get here, I'm like, okay, so if we go with my plan, if we go the way I plan things, she is not going to get a dealership, because now I'm seeing that the dealership is really that important to her. She's not going to get a dealership in Alabama, because if we were, according to my plan, we were going to leave at 4 o'clock this morning, drive through Georgia, up through North Carolina, and back around Pigeon Forge, and then hit Chattanooga in the evening again. Probably another long drive. And so we were like, well, there's a dealership just outside of Birmingham. It opens at 9. So we'll leave a little late and maybe go with the original plan, where we'll just go straight from here to Chattanooga and then do Pigeon Forge and all that on the second day in Chattanooga, as opposed to the first day. Because again, I was thinking about getting all these little stops in, and I'm realizing I probably bit off more than I could chew, because I put too much in the plan. Like I'm like I've been promoting this. Oh, there's 4 events each state. There's this, there's that, and I'm realizing time-wise, I might only have enough time for 1 or 2 events per state. And like even rethinking this in future plans, maybe instead of 1 day in a certain location, do 2 days, 1 to get there, 1 to leave, 1 to get there, 1 to leave.
yeah, a lot of this we've realized too, that a lot of the actual road trip is actually the driving. So it's not like you're sitting there and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna pop over here and pop over
Yeah.
there, and it's not like that. And not that we didn't know that a road trip would be like that, but it is definitely a lot of driving and a lot of
Well, I
time
think
for other things to happen.
I think we based it on our California trip,
Okay.
where we drove through Colorado, went down through Utah, and then Arizona hit a bunch of stuff on the way. And that went really, really smoothly. So I think, or at least I thought, this would be the same thing. We would just do the same kind of thing, not realizing a lot of what we were doing had time restraints. A lot of what we were doing had weather delays. A lot of what we were doing, again, we didn't factor those. This is a different climate. This is a different, location. This is a different location. And so the factors are going to be very different.
Right.
You know, so basically what plan worked in this area may not or will not work in this area.
Right.
You know, and I think that sometimes we have to factor that in as well. This is a whole different place. So the way the last trip planned or prior trips planned may not work here. So again, you might have to come up with that solution resolution and figure out, okay, how do we re-navigate? Because like I said, we're the fourth day in, you know, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, now we're on Tuesday. So now we have to figure out, because we got 5 more days, how do we do this the rest of the day? So now, you know, my plan is kind of thrown out the window. And we might just come up with a plan every morning. Okay, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? You know, and figure it out, because again, you know, from to this point, the plan is not working. So we need to rethink the plan.
And rethink the different locations. Yes, there are, you know, let's just say that there's 4 different things that we could do in each location, but which ones are most important? And which ones are most, I guess not most important, but I guess maybe that is the right way to explain it. But what is it that we want to accomplish? And I think that
Right.
way you have to remember that about, you know, in
Right.
our entire life, is that, you know, what is it that we want to accomplish? You're not going to be able to accomplish everything on every single day that you live. You know, there's times where you're just going to have to, you know, decide what is going to be, what part do you navigate to,
What is more important?
and which
You know, what is more important to you?
which is going to be most beneficial for you too later in the long run.
Well, and it's funny because you think about that. Like to me, Tupelo was more important to you.
Okay.
So it was like, okay, we gotta go this way, gotta go this way. She's gotta see Elvis. She's gotta see Elvis. And come to find out last night, I kind of told you, but I feel really bad that I didn't get to take you to Tupelo. You were like, well, I didn't even know that was there. You know, I kind of just knew that when you told me, you know, but I really didn't even think about that. I was more worried about Graceland. And I'm like, I'm over here working myself up. Again, not factoring in what's important to her. You know, again, part of that, we sometimes our plans, we come up with these plans and they don't work out, and we're upset that they don't work out, but we fail to take in and factor in all the elements of the plans. You know?
Yeah.
Like again, I'm thinking Elvis fan. We got to take her to all the Elvis spots. Dolly Parton fan. We got to take her to all the Dolly Parton spots. And so I'm thinking this way, and she's like, "Well, I didn't even know that was there."
Yeah. Well, and you know, you can't discount all the other things that are around too. I mean, I like to see the different locations that we're in. You know, I mean, like even when we were talking about this, driving through some of the just through the area that we're in, and see how then the natural beauty is. You know, the denseness of the
Right.
forest, and the some of the forests aren't as dense, but the swamps, you know, some of the different swampy areas. And, you know, there's so many other things that you could be focused on instead of actual location. You know, while
Right.
you're in the location that you want to be in, you still have to focus on the different things that are around you. You know, like, well, like we always talk about, you know, keep your head on the swivel, you know, swivel around, take a look at everything,
Yeah.
instead of just keeping your eyes on the one focus that you're
Yeah.
on. So,
Well, and I think even more so. I think it's funny. Like most people, like, what's so big about the dealership? What's so big about? But to you, that's big. That's big. And there's really nothing to see there. You see what you see at every other dealership. But for her to have the shirt that has a different dealership on the back is important to her. You know, and again, to me, I don't collect the shirts, so it's really not a big deal to me. You know, and to hear, well, you know, and I think that happened on like day 3, you know, on day 2, maybe day 2 or 3, she was like, it would be really cool to get a shirt from all the dealerships in the States that we're going to. Maybe not every, you know, because normally when she wants a shirt, it's usually whatever dealership is in that area. But if she was just saying, even if it's just one shirt per, and I'm like, okay, but that ain't gonna happen Monday and Tuesday because they're closed. I mean, Sunday and Monday, they're closed. And so we had to factor that in. And again, you know, I'm thinking more sightseeing, and she's like, I just want to go to the dealership. And that's part of, you know, when our plans don't go the way they plan because we don't factor other people in.
yeah, for sure. It's not about just yeah, it's not just about me. It's about who we're with and who we're going to see,
Right.
what experiences that we're going to have with
Right.
other people. And I think that's what we originally started this with, is because we wanted to connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
We want to connect with different areas, different people in those areas. And I think we've talked about it several times where, you know, anytime that we go somewhere, we're going to find something or somebody else to connect with.
Right.
And it's connecting with people and not just connecting with things.
Right. Right. Well, this is our podcast for this episode. As I always say, be blessed. And again, I'm probably not. I was trying to keep up with posting the pictures from this trip. That might just have to come later when I get back, when I do some editing on the pictures. But for the most part, you'll see some TikToks. You'll see some little collages that I'll put out there because I have enough time to do that. But I really want to make a full video episodes of just the trip, the days. So like day 1, day 2, day 3. And so those will come soon as I get back. So in this channel, on the YouTube channel, there is a playlist called The Epic Road Trip. And I will, as soon as I get back to Denver, I will start editing all the footage and I'll get it out there and you'll start seeing our trip. So again, be blessed, y'all.
All right, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We'd love to hear all your comments on the
Down below.
down below. Please let us know what you think, and if there's a place where you'd like to see or you'd like us to go to, maybe while we're out here, let us know about it, and maybe we'll try to fit it into our ever growing ever growing
list
of something that we're doing. So,
Well, then again, just because we don't do it this time doesn't mean we can't come back.
very true.
So give us something to come back to.
Yes. All right. Thanks, guys, for watching, and peace.
Be blessed.